1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Lay It on the Table, the Southern Board Game Podcast with the accent on Southern. As usual, I am one of your hosts, Joe Mahaffey.
And I'm your other host, James Engelhardt. It's good to see you again, Joe.
It's good to see you, man. We got to start getting on a regular cadence, and I know it's all my fault.
It's all right.
All my fault. It is truly my fault. The beginning of the year has been crazy, and I appreciate not only James' patience with me and us, but all of you who occasionally listen to us and sometimes leave us a snarky comment. We
awesome.
Appreciate your continued interest as we plow into the gaming world that is 2024. I would be remiss if I started this without giving a plug to Mythicon, which is in Asheville, Mythicon West, Asheville, North Carolina, the weekend of March 1st through March 3rd at the Doubletree in Asheville. It's actually closer to Biltmore, which is actually a cool location. I've actually stayed there before.
It's quite nice.
But unfortunately, as I mentioned on the last discussion, I had hoped to be going there, but it's not going to work out for Asheville. So I will have to wait until the fall and go back to the one here in Charlotte, which is a little bit more geographically desirable and doesn't conflict with some of the other things that I have currently going on. So unfortunately, we'll have to miss this go round.
Yeah, no, I would love to be there too. It's pretty convenient to me, but also it's the middle of the semester right at midterm, and things are going to be a little bit crazy.
It's pesky students.
I know. Oh, they're so sweet, but yeah.
Well, there's been a lot of news here lately in the gaming world. I want to touch on a few of them. One of those, I think, is probably the biggest release that we've seen in a while come out of Stonemaier.
Yes.
And that's, obviously they've had a lot of releases in their history. They had this Storied Expeditions release last year.
And Apiary.
This late in the fourth quarter, and then came Wormspan.
I know. And I think people should know that I called you or talking and you said, what, do you mean these two copies right here? I just got the notification today that it's heading my way, so I'll see it shortly. But all right, man, what do you got?
Well, I got to tell you, and I have some other news that I want to talk about that I failed to put in the notes, but
all right.
I can say unequivocally that it's a beautiful game.
Yeah.
And I will call it Wingspan adjacent.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It is 100% Wingspan adjacent.
Because there are some mechanics to this that are far more interesting. In terms of how do you explore the cave? How far can you go in the cave before you have to turn back or run out of resources? And
you can't spam the rows.
It's a strategic thing, but it's very elegant in its design. I will say that it's a bit of a beast to sleeve.
Okay.
The standard
if
card,
one sleeves, yes.
Well, there are certain games that I will sleeve, and there are certain games I will not sleeve. This is one game that I would sleeve, and I have sleeved actually. But it uses.
Did you watch all of the ring cycle? Did it take all of that to sleeve it?
All of the rings? No.
Thank you.
But thank you for that. No, it was. Yeah, that's. I don't know what to do with that, James. No, I think, the standard cards are the good thing about Stonemaier is that they do tend to be consistent with their card sizes. So you're going to get that classic standard USA Chimera card sleeve, which I personally use Sleeve Kings, which is
I hear good things.
It's a firm based out of Utah. They are great because they have a solid sleeved product, but the microns are very thin. So if you're trying to put it in a box and the box to lay flat, it's great. because
Awesome.
a lot of these cards that a lot of these sleeves that you might get for like a Pokemon or a Magic card or a baseball card tend to be a little thicker in microns because
Sure.
it's stiffer.
Right on.
And so I discovered these years ago, and have generally used all sleeve keys exclusively unless they have a size that they don't make, which in this instance, that was also a problem because the square
Right on.
are the same size as the cards that you would find in a game like Kanagawa. So I use the Swan card sleeves that are they're the Rabbit Hunt sleeves,
Okay.
which is a perfectly square. And so you're able to get all those sleeved. And then, of course, in true fashion, I went on to printables and found within 48 hours of the game showing up, somebody had already published a 3D print to store the game better, because it's the other complaint I have about the game. And these are minor complaints, but
Yeah.
so spoiled with getting these new Stonemeyer games that have adequate and thought out storage, whereas in this you get a bunch of bags.
Okay.
And that's fine. I appreciate that. So I 3D printed it, and I'm halfway through the first print, which is the bulk of the materials, and I go back and check the printable site, and the guy had just updated all the files for sleeved cards.
Ooh.
So it wasn't a major redo,
But
I had
still.
a few elements that I had to redo, but he had enlarged the card holders just slightly, that it didn't change the file size, but it did change the print size.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
I got a little confused by that, thinking, oh, I don't need to reprint those. And then I started putting the sleeves on and putting like, oh, yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
But I got it all done and I got it in there. And so I have a few extra pieces that I just throw on the table to throw their knickknacks in. But all in all,
Well,
it fits in the box really, really nicely.
nice.
The one thing I failed to do is I bought my 2 copies.
I heard.
In crazy at work, had it on my calendar, got in there, got out, totally forgot about the knickknacks, the bits.
Right.
By the time I went back, they were sold out.
Ooh.
Which is fine. I mean, that's not critical to the game.
No, but it's nice if you're thinking about it to have those. Yeah.
But less than an hour ago, Jamie sent out a Wormspan Wingspan update, and I quote,
All right.
If you ordered Wormspan from Stonemeyer Games, thank you so much. Our fulfillment centers are still working through the shipping process if you're in Canada, but it's going well, and you should receive shipping notification by the end of next week, or at the latest March 2nd.
I got mine today. Yeah.
So there you go. So your order, if you realize something is wrong with it, let them know within 24 hours. And by the way, their customer service is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Out of stock.
Oh, absolutely stunning. Yeah.
Out of stock. For any out of stock Wormspan products, we are making more.
They are.
Please sign up for a back in stock notification, and we'll contact you in 5 months when reprints arrive.
I remember hearing that this was like just a stunning sell through for them.
Yeah.
So I remember when we were talking to him that he was talking about avoiding Kickstarter, and it seemed to me that this was exactly his model, right? Like, we've got the thing, we're going to start doing pre-orders in the 4 to 6 weeks that would have been the Kickstarter. We're doing the pre-orders, and then we're going to have all of it, and we're going to send it out. And I thought, yeah, no, he's doing the thing that he said he was going to do, and it looks to be a huge success.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've been in the game store a couple of times, and I've just taken the copy with me just so people can. So yeah, that's pretty big news. Obviously, that's on my table.
Pretty awesome.
Table. But before we kind of get into the what's on the table segment, I did have a couple of other things I wanted to sort of jump into. Cool. There has been so, as those of you who listen to this podcast know, that James and I have been involved on and off in a D&D game campaign.
Oh yeah,
a long time, and we've used Roll20, and we found Roll20 to be a wonderful platform for pandemic and all the things that we need to do, because not only is it pandemic based, but obviously James lives a couple hours away from me and his daughter lives many, many hours away from all of us.
Yes.
And so to bring that community together to play a game of virtual tabletop is basically required.
Yes.
And I still am a big fan of Roll20, but I have been tinkering now that we're out of the campaign again with Foundry VTT.
Right. Right, because we had flirted with that a couple of times, but it didn't. Yeah.
Well, when we flirted with it before, we were already knee deep in the hoopla with our campaign, and to do a lift and shift to a new platform and distract everybody with a whole new user experience would have just really churned the game down to a slow crawl. And I didn't want to do that, but I didn't really realize that until we were trying to get into it. So I tabled it. The nice thing about Foundry VTT is you buy a license, you own the license for life.
Oh, nice.
And you can deploy it a couple of different ways. One way is through what they call the Forge.
Yep.
Which is basically a server farm that you can subscribe to for, a couple of bucks a month. It's probably more like 25 or something like that to run your license in your games, which is great if you want to pay for it. I didn't really have a need to do that.
Right.
I initially tried to say, well, let's see if I can set it up in a Docker container. So I did that on one of the many cloud-based services that are out there. I won't mention it because it's not important. I was able to get it up and running and make it work, and got a little vexed by the reverse proxy stuff, but was able to sort it out. And like, okay, this is great, but I'm still in a situation where I have to pay for it. So I wasn't really excited about that.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't think I would use it to the level that I would have to pay for the service, etc. So then I was able to deploy it on a Synology NAS, which is something I have here in my home office. I have a little, I'll call it a home lab. That's what they hobbyists call it. And that worked to a degree, but I just didn't think that the Synology, which is a great tool for Dockers and virtual machines and other things, was really just going to have the horsepower that I would want to do the kind of campaign like we did, where we're going to have people from all over the place. And, the internet termination point is here in my home. And there's video and there's all these things. So I scratched that idea. Well, the rest of the story is I'll try to go fast with this. So, in my nerddom, I did a couple of things here recently. Number one, I set up an Unraid server in my home using a AMD chipset with a nice graphics card, a very small mini PC that are very inexpensive. I mean, compared to buying a couple of board games, I guess they're inexpensive. And added some drives that I had to set up, because I'm trying to set up a Plex server to scan all my old DVDs or things that I legally own and put them in Plex, which is true. I do legally own them.
So for anybody who's like listening to this is why Joe does all of the tech stuff on this show. Yeah. 100%.
Yay. So long story short, in setting up the Plex server on the Unraid, I discovered that Unraid is basically a fancy way of deploying Docker containers, and there is a Foundry VTT Docker container embedded in the Plex community. So I installed it, and it just installed seamlessly and beautifully, and I was able to get the reverse proxy figured out so I can give you guys access to the outside. I have 2.5 gigabit coming up to the house via fiber, and I have 2.5 gigabit in the house. So we should be fine for the next campaign, which I'm very excited about.
That's awesome.
That is not the big news.
Okay. It sounded super fun though.
I know it does.
And absolutely incomprehensible to me, but I love it.
Not bad for a history major from Wofford College.
Yeah.
But what I inadvertently discovered is that they're rapidly developing Foundry VTT. They're almost on a version 12.
Wow. Okay.
And
well, good for them.
since we were last together, a couple of things happened. Number one, Foundry VTT announced a partnership with Wizards of the Coast.
Ooh.
And they now have a authorized and stabilized SRD for 5e. And they released a game under the WotC label that's the new Phandelver.
Oh yeah,
in the Shattered Obelisk or the Obelisk Blow or whatever. I should have it in front of me if I'm going to talk about it.
yeah, it's okay.
And so I loaded that too just to see how it looked. And I'm working on a different homebrew thing, but it was just kind of fun to play around with and just sort of see how it was operating and just see how quickly the VTT is coming together. And I think it was nice to see that here's a platform. You know, if you want to run Pathfinder, there's a module for it. If you want to run 5e,
Nice.
there's a module for it. If you want to run Shadow Dark, you know, if you want to run, I guess is what, Stranger Worlds or Savage Worlds.
Savage Worlds, yeah.
There's a module for everything. And in watching some of these videos, the developers of Foundry VTT have really designed it that their hope is that you could take any game you want to play and put it into the platform. It's kind of gravitated to a virtual tabletop for role playing, but you could just as easily put a board game in there if you wanted to do it. And so it's just an interesting platform, especially if you wanted to, like if you're a game designer and you wanted to design something and put it in there and kind of play test it a little bit in a environment. So it's an interesting platform. I'm curious to see what more you can do with it, but I did want to talk about that because I think the next, at least what I'm working on with some mutual friends of ours that we've been talking about is kind of going to be a short-term one shot.
Right.
You know, maybe more than one shot, maybe a couple, 3 to 4 to 5
mini series. Sure.
Where it goes. But we're going to try, I think we're going to do it on Foundry VTT.
Okay.
So anyway,
awesome.
I just wanted to talk about that because, you know, there's been a lot of craziness, in the news. You know, we're over a year away from the OGL.
Yep.
And I've seen some crazy YouTubes. Even Professor Dungeon Master had an episode not too long ago talking about is WotC for sale. And then came back and retracted it. And I think that's significant only because he's a measure twice, cut once kind of guy.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he just doesn't hear a rumor and runs with it. So I think he had something credible when he brought that out. And then, you know, of course, being the stand-up person that he is, he pulled it back.
Retracted. Yeah.
When he realized it was wrong.
Okay.
But there's also been a lot of chatter that the new books are not even going to be out to the fourth quarter, and you're not even going to get a full set until after Christmas. And so,
all right, this is D&D 1, yes?
D&D 1, yeah. So, so it's just kind of interesting to see where we are a year later in this whole process.
And I just love that this is going to be the last. Like, no, it will not. That would be absurd.
And so with that as a backdrop, I would be remiss not to wish happy 50th birthday to Dungeons & Dragons.
Right.
Just turned 50 this recent weeks ago. So that just tells me that, wow, I was alive when it happened.
No,
I wasn't in the room when it happened.
No.
Hamilton fans. But I was live when it happened. Anyway. So, so that's kind of all the air out of the room there. I'll start with what's on the table.
All right, man, what you got?
Because even though I don't have as many to talk about, I do have a longer segment, I think, on this. So obviously Wormspan, we already talked about it. We got it on the table.
And how was it?
It was good. It was really good. We enjoyed it. It took a little minute to get our brain around it.
Sure.
We watched a quick video run through. I do like that it comes with some starter cards, like little.
Okay.
This is a good recommended first move, second move, third move. Flip it over.
Oh, so this is what they have in Wingspan these days too, right?
Yeah, but instead of the big card, everybody gets their own.
Okay.
And I noticed this, and spoiler alert: Wormspan is a 5-player game.
Oh.
They give you 6 sets of cards.
Ooh.
implies expansion.
Oh, good God, yes.
So yeah, big spoiler alert. Yeah, good one,
Yeah.
Joe. Yeah.
Didn't see that coming. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the first piece. We already sort of talked about that whole drama. We're gonna get some more playthroughs on it in, and I'll talk more about it
Awesome.
later. But I do want to talk about the next two that are on my list.
Yeah, man.
So as I mentioned last time, I go to a Methodist church here in North Carolina.
You do indeed.
Post pandemic, we're trying to get people out and doing things in a sociable way. The bunch of small groups form. Some small groups were like, hey, we're going to study this book. We're going to study this passage, these books of the Bible, whatever. I said, I'm going to do board games. And
it's a lot more interesting than Leviticus.
Could be. Yep. Unless, well, it depends on the board game.
That's fair.
I could pull out Vita Lacerda's Kanban and we can have that. So,
fair point.
Yeah. So we've been doing this now. We've had three meetings. I want to say 3 episodes.
I heard that.
And we have not been meeting at the church. We've been meeting at the game store. So
nice.
I have 2 tables in the game store, Carolina Tabletop Games, not a sponsor, but they should be.
Yeah, but clearly they should be kicking you back some. Yeah, man, because like you're bringing people and then bringing more people. Yeah.
So it's been really interesting just because, it's like communities colliding.
Oh, yeah.
We have a very diverse group, ranging in ages and backgrounds and interests and stuff. And so that's been really cool. So the first game we taught was Wingspan because that was our gateway game. So we made it a gateway game. And everybody, everybody was new to Wingspan. Everybody was frustrated for the first round.
What are we even doing?
And
then I get it.
By the third round, it began to click, 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 click.
So how many people are in this group? Are you having multiple games of Wingspan going?
Yeah, so it's fun. Yeah, this is exactly right. So there are, including Dale and myself, there's 12.
Okay, it's a good number.
Now, friend of the show, Grace.
Yes.
Been kind enough to be there on Sundays as a extra proctor, so to speak. Somebody who knows can kind of offer some support.
Yep.
And so I had a second copy of Wingspan. So we set that up and I divvied up the bits so that everybody had a bit as opposed to the cardboard. And I have enough, I'm sad to say I have enough mats for 2 games. So everybody had a play mat.
Fantastic.
And then everybody was then one person who went out and bought the game said, all this stuff is cardboard.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
because you can recycle it. Yeah.
Here's Meeple Source. Ship Shaper games. Yeah. If you want
all the stuff you want. Yeah.
The add-ons, there's where you go.
Sure.
No, but anyway, long story short, the first game was so well received.
Awesome.
The original idea was this is an 8-week class and we were going to do 8 different games. And I was trying to make it fit a theme of just sort of, nature.
Sure.
So Wingspan was a perfect fit. It is now going to be 8 weeks of 4 games because everybody wants to play them twice.
That's fair.
Which makes it, which I mean, had I thought about
that's good. Yeah.
You learn the game, you go away for a week, you come back the next week, and then you play the game again.
Yeah.
So we did 2 weeks of Wingspan, and it was good too because not everybody can make it every week.
That's fair.
So, and then I'm also I'm encouraging people to mix up and sit at a table with people that maybe you didn't sit with last week,
Sure.
So we did it again and, just as enjoyable the second go around.
Yep.
And
were they settled in and like, okay, I have my strategies that I was thinking about last time and now we're going to try them again
ish.
Okay.
There's some of that. And then there's the whole, hey, we're in the game store. People finally felt comfortable to actually get a beer.
All right. They are Methodists. Which is nice.
Yeah. And so that we're like, is this okay? I'm like, it's perfectly fine.
Just don't spill it on the, yeah.
We're not on the, there's a reason why now you know why I sleeve my cards.
That's awesome. Well, and then, if they gets in the top end and you get all the capillary action, it could become, yeah.
So we did that, and so we did 2 weeks of Wingspan, and even
Nice.
one of the Sundays was Super Bowl Sunday,
Ah,
and people stayed to the end.
wow. They didn't go to see the Mega Dexterity Challenge game?
No,
Okay,
I mean they probably did later. I mean, I
sure.
you
It was a late kickoff, so what are you gonna do?
know. And then the second go around we did Parks.
Awesome. A fantastic game.
It is and it was our second game, I think, or pretty darn close to it. So it was one of those
Ah, okay.
leading them down the path into
As it were.
Parks, as it
Yeah.
were, yes. And that's been, and we actually have a second copy of that, which I did pick up for this
Yeah.
class because, well, it's Parks.
Sure. It's a
And
good
so
game.
we led them through that, and we're going to do that again this coming Sunday because I think but it was interesting because the engine build is different.
Oh, it's very different. Yeah.
And getting,
And the resource management is a very different vibe too.
absolutely. And so that was kind of fun to kind of watch that come through, as well as explaining, hey, this
Right.
look, there's 5 of us here. This is going to be a low scoring game
Yeah.
because there's only so many resources to go around, and you may or may not get your bonus.
Right.
So it was, and then as we were talking, I was beginning to compare and contrast Parks and Wingspan and the cards and the strategy. And like someone asked me, like, is there a benefit going to the end of the trail early in the round? And I said, well, if you've got a ton of resources and you're playing a race to get a card or get a card out that is beneficial for you, or you want that player 1 marker in the last round, so you have that point at the end of the game.
So you get the extra point. Yeah.
There's all kinds of ways to gain.
There are some things that you could do.
Point.
Yeah. Being the last one in is not the best thing. So yeah.
Right. So it was just sort of interesting. And then teaching people how to leverage, your unforgettable fire, how to flip your fire and how to get it back. So there was a lot to it. So they're beginning to
the Bono move.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get them to see part of the things I promised them that they would get out of this experience is a language for games.
Ah, good.
That competency of what does the slash mean versus the plus? What is when you see the word may, what does that mean versus you do? So we're beginning to see that.
What is a tile placement versus worker? Yeah.
So all in all, I would say it's a success. The people seem to like it. And what I really love about it too is that, there's a diversity in the game store that I would say is a bit different than, say, the diversity of our congregation.
Sure.
And it's just been very interesting to see that interaction as well. And I mean that in a very constructive and positive way.
Sure. Absolutely. It's important.
Yeah. Well, the Methodist Church, talks a lot about that, but it's nice to see it in action.
It's fair. Yeah.
Sense.
Yep.
So anyway, enough on that. So those are what's been on my table because we've either been in the store playing those games or we've been playing them at home to be sure that we're sharp when we're playing them. Because
this is always good. And how many times have you played Wormspan is kind of my big question.
We've only gotten a couple plays in.
Okay, no, that's good. A couple is good.
Yeah, because of the other stuff.
I've heard really good things from other media that it's like, all the people who had hesitations about Wingspan were like, maybe this is going to be good. And they're pretty much saying, oh my God, yeah, no, everything that I had a problem with about Wingspan, I kind of solved it. And I'm if you don't like Stonemaier, then, I don't even know why you're listening to this. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think it's, it's something to say about that organization. And I think you and I both came away from our discussion with Jamie feeling this way. Here's somebody who is, the influencer of influencers in the board game industry, at least from the United States point of view. He is a bigger fish. If if Hasbro and Parker Brothers or the Warner Brothers and Columbia Records of the industry, he is a label like Def Jam that has made it really big. And
He's such a white guy. It's really, really weird to call him Def Jam, but yeah.
I know.
Sub Pop. Let's go Sub Pop.
Hey, he could be the Rick Rubin of board games. You don't know. He just can't grow the beard. Maybe he can grow the beard, but he chooses.
No, I cannot. So, as we have discussed. So, yeah.
So anyway,
yeah.
I like that he is constantly bringing that to the industry in a humble way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what's on my table. You look like you've been very busy.
Well, it's been busy. So Laura went away to the Association of Writers and Writing Programs conference in Kansas City, just on the cusp of the Super Bowl. She was and she was like, "Oh, thank God it's not actually happening here. It's happening in Las Vegas." But still, people were freaking out, so that was fun. And for a couple of nights, Emerson would go to bed, and my neighbor and colleague at Furman would come over, and his wife was off visiting with friends. So we're like, "Hey, we're doing the Bachelor thing and hanging out." So we played a bunch of games over a couple of nights. We played a couple of these are throwbacks. So Blue Moon City, which is a Reiner Knizia from like 20 years ago. And it's such a fun little game. And they've done a reprint and an update, and it's just well worth looking into. It's card play. You've got these big chunky tiles that you're putting out, and you can put them out in a basic pattern, then you can put them out in all kinds of different patterns. But cards move your characters around, and dragons, it's all about dragons, to different parts of the map, and you're gathering various kinds of currencies, resources, basically crystals and dragon scales. And you're fulfilling the contracts on these big tiles to flip them over, and then you get benefits from the tiles that have already been flipped earlier, and then you're going to the middle of the map where there's this obelisk and really it's just a race to be the first person to put 6 fulfillments of the crystals there in the middle. But it's really nice because all the cards they influence, like if you can move the dragons, move yourself a little extra. You can turn cards into other kinds of cards when they're there in your hand. So it's a fun little, very Knizia kind of game.
Nice.
And even further back, Crokinole. So we'd gotten to the end of the night, drinking a couple beers as one does, and we're like, okay, so I should probably go soon, but let's just sit back, hang out, shoot the shit. He's Canadian. And I said, I've got this Crokinole board. And he was like, oh. So, yeah. So we played just classic, playing Crokinole. So that was super fun. He was like, oh, this is a really nice Crokinole board. I was like, it's really not. It's the one that Mayfair did about 10 years ago. 14 years ago, because it came out about the same time that Sky did. So, 14, 15, but I was like, no, so it was super fun to play, and just sit there, and you don't even, it's just that sort of a beer and pretzels thing. You're like not even necessarily keeping score, kind of. You're just,
Right.
doing the Crokinole thing. And then he has in his back pocket his own game company called Revamp Games, and their logo is a vampire. It's not exactly dabbing, if you go back a couple years, but it's a vampire, covering his nose and like so because they're revamping classic games. So their idea is you have a copy of probably Monopoly or Candyland or Connect 4 or something like this, right? Sorry. And what they do is they send you a little box. Actually, they don't do this yet because, again, they're Canadians and they don't have green cards, so they can't actually make money in the States. you know,
Fair.
right? But what they would do is essentially give you kind of a small box that's essentially here are the parts that you need to play a very different and much more interesting game with this game that's just sitting in the back of your closet because you don't know what else to do with it. And so we played a couple of those. I played one of them in the past already,
Mhm.
and we played two of those, one of which was a battling tooth fairies game, which was hilarious and went really quick. It was wonderful. And the other one, I'm vague booking here because they're going to want to keep doing this. And the other one was a word game where you might be dropping letters onto a grid and trying to screw the person across from you for getting bad, like words that you can't score. So that was a super fan. So I have it under here as unpublished prototypes because I just, yeah. But it was super fun. It was super fun to, and like they're really polished and lots of really great stuff. So that was yeah, and it's also just kind of fun to play like something that nobody else can, you
Right.
know. So that was kind of cool. And then there were two game nights or days that have happened, and so there's a bunch of stuff that's in this list that are that. So student game day,
Right.
and I think I talked a little bit about this last time, but this is by far the best first year writing class I have had. I mean, I've had also good writing classes, and they're fantastic, and they're right up there with those. But these students are just they love games, and like even today we were in class and I was making some weird D&D throwaway, and like six of them were like, yes, so super awesome. So we played I had one table playing Ticket to Ride for
Okay.
the first time ever for all four of them. And they're all four of them wrote about it in their game journals, and they were astonished at how simple, like straightforward it was, but
Right.
how interesting it was, how great the decisions were. It's just super fun to watch somebody. I mean, and you're watching this too with your group at your church, right? You're like, oh, these are really good games. And this is the first time that they're exploring this and watching their sort of brains explode briefly and then just settle in. And at least two of them were like, my mom and dad are buying this game. We are playing this henceforth and forevermore. So
And they don't have a say in it.
yeah, exactly. Mom and dad are picking this up. That's just how it's going to be. And it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited for them. And it was just fun to watch that. And then the other group, and I have a ringer in my class because my department chair, her husband, is the sort of daytime manager of the best game store in town, in the upstate, I think, and so he's awesome. So Tim, and so the son is Miles. So he's in this class and he's like, oh yeah, okay, we can play just one. So we got so he was just on, I didn't even have to worry about the Miles was like, we could play just one. So he got them going, and they played that for a little bit, and that went well. And then they switched to like, what are we also going to play? And I put Pina Parada in front of them, and they were like, meh. They played like a round or two, and Miles is like, if we're going to do this, we might as well just play Flux. I was like, it's a fair point, but let me bring you to another ancient game called King Me. Um, and so King Me is a game where you get a little card that has a list of like 8 little names on it. And there are like 12 named characters, and you're just moving them up this little track. And at one point, there's going to be a one person, and then everybody votes on whether that person should be the king or not. You get you get 2 no votes that have to go away. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you get 2 no votes that have to go away, like every time you vote no, and then you can vote yes as many times as you like. And eventually somebody's going to be the new king. and you get points for where they are on where you are on those tracks. And the first round, they were like, I don't see what's going on here. And then all of them were like, oh, because Miles took one character up and there was like, okay, great, we're going to vote for him for king. And Miles flipped his card over and it was a no vote. And they were like, what? It was like, yeah, he's not on my card. They were like, wait. So it was brilliant. It was super fun to watch them like lose their minds briefly and then move ahead. So that was super fun. And then the last couple of games, this was then the game night here at the house a couple of nights ago. Laura taught Forest Shuffle a couple of times. Fantastic game. Scout, which I have yet to play. Tim, the aforementioned Tim from the game store.
Right.
Yeah, taught that a couple of times to people. And my group played Lost Ruins of Arnak. Have you had a chance to play Lost Ruins?
I love Lost Ruins. Yeah, we have it. I even have inserts for it from Shipshaper Games. I have the one expansion as well, but not the second.
Okay.
But no, we love Lost Ruins. It takes up the table, boy.
Oh, it does. Yes.
But what I like about it is it's got this. I love games where there's more than one way to win.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got all the feels of that. If you don't want to vanquish monsters, not a problem. Just go up the academic route.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and but the research route is pretty intense.
Yes.
Yeah. And so my friend Magdalene was like, I was playing with her and Matt, and there was a point 2/3 of the way through where Matt and I kind of pivoted to the research. And, you're going up to those, I'm going to get the 23 points, I'm going to get and then get the points after that. And she was like, I'm still going to vanquish things. And she didn't quite, it took her another couple of turns to realize that you vanquish things, you do the exploration to push the research track agenda.
Right.
And then she watched us zoom ahead, getting those resources from the exploration. And she's like, yep, I missed that.
Fiddly sticks.
Yep. She was like, damn it. So then like 10, 15, I don't know. Everybody else was playing like 2 games of Forest Shuffle, 2 games of Scout, and we're still playing our game. And after the second flip for those, she's like, oh, yep. Yeah, no, I've lost. Like, I'm sorry. She's like, nope, I made a fatal error. Should have done that pivot. Didn't do it. Yeah.
Well, and that's, the beauty of playing the game for the first time and learning sort of those components and picking the right research assistants and tenure.
And depending on what's available to you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the cards. I mean, there's just so many different elements to that game.
Yeah.
Building out the deck, and we do enjoy it. It's been a hot minute since we've played it, but we played it here. I mean, when I say it fills out the board game, I mean, we have this, big game table, and we have to just sort of spread it out and sit on one side of the table.
Oh yeah.
And just kind of have you stand up and walk around. We had the Keeners over one night and we played it, and we had like, charcuterie and that kind of stuff for food, just because you're walking around the table, and it's just, a great time though. It's a great game.
No, it is. And it was funny too, because at the end you're like, well, I have a lot of gold and the cards are points, and either gold or, compasses. So I'll just buy cards, because it'll fill out. It's like playing Forest Shuffle. You're like, putting butterflies out isn't going to score me a ton of points, but if it's close, it could be the edge. So,
it's funny you mentioned that. Somebody, the Kelties, friends of the show and the store, turned me on to a place on Amazon where you could get little real compasses. like
Oh,
little,
that's
and
adorable.
it was not like it was just like giving you all the bits, but not in the same way that you might get them from Meeple Source.
Right, right.
So I ended up doing that. So my game is, that one's kind of tricked out.
Nice.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun.
No, but and Matt's an I mean, he's a young guy early. I said these are both faculty members. It's kind of funny. You end up playing with a lot of these people, but he had grown up in, Magic the Gathering and stuff, and he was like, okay, this looks like the points up there says 23, 21, and then up there it's like, yeah, it's clearly where I need to get to. So he's like, whoosh. Yeah,
That's funny.
that's where I'm gonna go. It's like, yeah.
Well, it's how long have you had that? Was that game new to you, or have you had it for a while, or?
I've had it for a while, and I've played it just sort of soloing a couple of hands just to figure out, how the game goes. But this was the first time playing with an actual live other human beings in the world, so it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, we had a couple of other options, but I think this is going to be the most fun, and it absolutely was. This is like, I'm going to fight. What monster is going to show up? What am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to be. And it's funny because there were so few, like, I'm going to actually fight the monster, the Guardian. And
Yep. Yep.
and it's funny the way that happens because you fight them, but then they come back to hang out with you. Like, I'm going to fight you, and you're going to say, okay, that was cool. Maybe I can do something for you. Like maybe, get you a boat or a plane or something,
Yeah, I mean it's a very well thought out game. Lots of different
yeah.
things going on, and yeah, that's awesome.
So, and speaking of things that are well thought out about the game, I learned recently that all of those icons, the little runic kind of symbols,
Yeah,
it's an actual alphabet.
interesting.
Yeah, it's hieroglyphs, and they're readable.
You must work in academia.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm geeky about this kind of stuff, but somebody else did that. It was not me. It was not me. Somebody else did this. But they're like, no, you can translate all the stuff that's on the board on the research track, where it has the little hieroglyphs.
Yeah,
It's a story.
I love it.
I do too. It made me love it all the more. It was amazing. So that doesn't make any difference at all for gameplay, but it just made me happy.
Wow, that's funny. I love it.
Yep.
So you mentioned Scout. How was that game?
I didn't play it. That was Tim over at another table teaching it. So we had 9 people. We're expecting 12. You never get everybody that you expect.
Sure.
So we had 3 tables of 3.
Yep.
The other tables swapped back and forth, mixed it up who was doing what. So I never got to play Scout, but people, from I could hear it in, the corner of my ear, people loved it.
Nice.
And one of the women who was new to it was like, no, I'm playing this twice. Like, you cannot stop me. So that was fantastic.
That's awesome.
And at some point, I really hope, because Tim is our sort of ace in the hole of like, we have 3 tables. Tim's going to teach a game. Laura's going to teach a game. I'm going to teach a game. And I'm like, I really want to play a game with Tim. I did last time or 2 times ago, but I think it's mostly going to, fall out like that. So
yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Well, so it sounds like you've been a lot busier than we have. Maybe I need to, well, it's interesting. I'm kind of hoping that this particular group I'm working with becomes sort of like an ongoing game group, and they don't play with me.
Yeah.
If they get out and, play with other folk. So we'll have to just sort of wait and see how that unfolds.
I think it's a nice long-term strategy for you, man. You'll like finding, I see that you've got the Mac OS as well. Like, too many thumbs up and you'll just get the,
There we go. Boom.
We discovered the 2 thumbs down with the rain the other day with Sky. So there it is. Yep.
Need to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't tell Sky that when you said Scout, I was like, oh wait, that's not it. Oops. Oops. Well, the Kickstarter front,
Yeah.
it's been pretty interesting. I haven't backed anything.
Okay.
Had
I've
I
seen
backed
something over there.
had I backed Letters of Rome when we last spoke? I can't remember.
I don't know.
There is
Did you?
there is an expansion to Axe called Letters
Okay.
of Rome.
Oh, right.
That I did back, but I think I talked about that last time. However,
Okay.
a big box showed up at my house.
Yeah.
And it was Redwood.
What is this?
It is this is Redwood, the big box. I backed it. Gosh,
Apparently.
I don't know how long ago it was that I backed it. It's the base game of Redwood, with all the feels of, like, plastic inserts and extra cards and all the Kickstarter stuff, miniatures,
Wow.
etc. Redwood is honestly, it's a game that's themed around the redwoods of the California forests.
Sure.
4-player, seems to be relatively lightweight, but it just showed. I haven't even taken it out of the shrink wrap, honestly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The artwork is beautiful. The box is huge.
It looks huge.
It's like it basically fills up a Kallax cube.
Damn. All right.
So that finally showed up, and I'm also getting a lot of alerts that other things. I totally flaked on this because it showed up. Pest showed up.
Oh, yes.
So the plague doctor is in the house.
Sweet.
All the deluxes came with that, and I am kind of anxious to get that out on the table first.
Makes sense.
Because it's in there as well. So
I would, really interested in how that plays.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how it goes as well. It's funny, you back these things and months go by, and did I mention that the months went by?
Months, years,
Years.
There's more gray, there's less hair. Yeah.
So I also am expecting the Game Toppers add-on to show up here in March.
Awesome.
Which will basically take my game table and make it a dining room table.
That'd be fantastic.
Which they've had for a while. They just, because I got the large table, we were the last one to kind of get this upgrade, and I like the idea of being able to cover up a game that you have on the table.
Yes.
And then come back to it.
Yep.
And we've also been known to pack up that table and put it all in their cases and take it with us on vacation.
That's cool.
Places, and that way you have a board game table, and we typically will move the dining room table of wherever we're staying out of the way, and so yeah, those are the things that I've been paying attention to. And it looks like you put something up here as well.
I did. There's this funky little new TCGE called Altered. And this is from the good folks at Libelud, who have done Dixit Mysterium, all kinds of other seasons is one of my faves. I haven't played it. I was thinking about this the other day that I need to try to unleash this on my game group. They are at the moment, their pledge goal was 53,000 plus. Mm-hmm. They have reached 3 million plus.
Wow.
So they're apparently got some attention, and a whole bunch of, their stretch goal, it was funny, like stretch goal of 3.2 million. We made that. Like, what the hell, people? All right. So,
so they've got 3 million and they don't have the name Critical or Role in there, or Shadow or Dark. Interesting.
This is correct, but they do have the name Libelud, which is good, particularly if you are French, I will fout. Anyway, so so it's a so the interesting things about this particular CCG is that it's about exploration resources and not fighting. You win your side, you win the game if you bring your two, like there's a character and a companion, and if you bring them together on the right, there are three terrain tiles or cards. If you bring them together on the right terrain tile, then boom, you win the game. And it's like 15-20 minutes a game. So this is what you're expecting from a quick sort of card battler, except it's not actually battling. So that's nice. So here's the fun stuff that I'm looking at. Every card has a QR code on it, which looks a little weird, but this is early mid 20th century or 21st century, ha 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 ha, early mid 21st century. And so QR codes are becoming, I mean, they've been ubiquitous for a while, and people are leaning into them more, which is just funny because I had a coworker 8 years ago who was like, QR codes are dead. Nobody's doing QR codes anymore.
Yeah.
So that was hilarious. Anyway, so you got the card and you can just register the card. Each card comes with a long backstory. So then you can read the backstory of the card and the story of the card. But then you can also, when you have all your cards scanned, reorganize them on their app. And like, how do you want to build your deck? So you could do deck building away from the deck whenever you want to. And I was like, oh, that's an addictive little behavior. Okay, got it. Awesome. You can also then meet up with other people who have registered decks around you. Okay. And then they also have a virtual / real world trading space. So if you want to trade cards with somebody else wherever over the world, you've all registered your stuff on their app. And so you can say, yeah, let's swap these. And then if you've done that, but you don't have the card yet, but you're going to a tournament or something, they have a POD option. And I think the POD option is probably not quite as spicy. It doesn't look as good, but you can get it sent right to you immediately. And then they also have their branded card sleeves. So you
Wow.
can just slap that in there and it still looks like I mean, there's just a whole lot going on. And it's worth thinking about where do we go with games? Where do we go with, CCGs, TCGs? And I think these guys are kind of, I mean, I like the background narratives. That's great. But the way that they're leveraging the technology, super fascinating.
Well, it just goes to show that, I mean, any kind of game structure that has that kind of a monetization, microtransactions, as we say.
Yep. I think that's, yeah.
That's the thing. And I
Yep.
think that's what, I've watched our local game store. It used to be that they bridged profitability with beer, and now I think they don't need to because of the magic. They still have,
Oh, yeah.
still have the beer.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's just going to be part of the model.
Yeah. And it was just interesting to see like this company is just like,
I'm just always curious. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, go.
Curious though, because I always wonder how much air in the room is there for this type of game. In other words,
Yeah.
if I'm all in on Magic the Gathering since 1990, whatever.
Yeah.
And Keyforge didn't take me away, and Transformers didn't take me away, and I don't know how this Disney version of Magic is doing.
Lorcana, yeah.
I haven't really kept up with it because, as you know, TCGs are not my thing. But
And Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and yeah.
But when I think of the Pantheon,
Oh yeah.
and I think Magic, I think Pokemon, and I think Yu-Gi-Oh, and then it's like, and baseball, if they still do that. I don't know if they still do.
There are basically. Well, I mean, and I think part of it is the narrative, again, the stories that this game is trying to tell. And Lorcana is leveraging the stories that so many of us know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there was, yeah, I'm trying to think. There were so many others, but Magic at this point has such a rich narrative as well, and that's so tied into uh D&D lore at this point as well,
Yes, it
if
is
you
now.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think you find, I my guess is that Lorcana is leveraging the kids, younger kids, and to some extent just people who are House of Mouse, which is a weird. I mean, and if you're House of Mouse and listening, I love you people. This is cool. It's not my vibe, but I know that there are people who are very much into it.
Well,
And they'd be like, I'm interested in what Magic is doing. That could be cool, but I don't want to pay a lot of, but oh my God, Goofy, I'm here for it.
well, it's funny you mentioned that because one of the podcasts that I listen to is, I think I've mentioned it before, is Pod Meets World, which is a
Oh
re
yeah, yeah.
of Boy Meets World.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a Disney property. They were an ABC property that was a co-op between ABC and Disney. And then Disney bought ABC while they were doing the show.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been recently talking about they all had to do the Disney World promo.
Wow.
So Boy Meets World does a episode of their show taking
Going
place
to
at Disney
Disney.
World, and then step by step, the Patrick Duffy, Suzanne Summers are doing a Disney World show that same week airing, and then there is a cross contamination of the characters, although very subtle.
Wow.
And
Fair.
but they've
So
been,
you can get those Lorcana cards, one hopes.
you could, but now Will Friedle is doing another podcast that you can hear on their channel, along with a woman. I don't know her. Her name is Sabrina. She was in the Cheetah Girls. I have no idea what her last name is. So haters go ahead and hate. And they're watching all the decomps, which is the Disney Channel original movies. And they're starting with My Date with the President's Daughter, which is one of the first Disney films he did. So it's just kind of,
Wow.
so is that, when Disney
Mm-hmm.
gets, where I'm going with this, when Disney gets their claws in something, they extend the IP through it.
Oh yeah.
And to the point that it's, so going back to your point about the House of Mouse, they were saying that the night that these shows aired, because back in those days, it was the 90s, all you had was, all you had was an 800 number.
Right.
They booked up the park in one night.
Wow.
With trips, because people watched and said, that's now on my bucket list. We got to go.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to fight the mouse.
Yeah.
And, from what I hear, Lorcana is actually a really solid game. I'd kind of like to play it, but, yeah. So I don't know. And this crew, in France with the altered, it's, part of the vibe of it is that you're not fighting, but you're, it's more of a tug of war of getting your pieces where it needs to go. And yeah,
100%.
I don't know. We'll see. They've clearly have millions of dollars now at their disposal to do this. So
yes, and that's actually improved this quarter because they're finally above $100 a share. So it's somebody who has been underwater for a year with those guys.
Wow. Well, good for them, and congratulations.
I don't know. Well, that's all I have this week.
Yeah, me too.
Really to talk about in the D&D department until we get a game going again. There is the homebrew that we're brewing on.
Awesome. And we're keeping you from dinner. I'm keeping you from dinner. Man, dude, you should go.
That's okay. We're in Lent. I'm on the whole 30 anyway, so there's, no alcohol, no carbs, no sugar.
Okay.
But it's good. It's good food.
What I mean, it's just proteins?
No, there's vegetables and there's
carbs and vegetables.
There are carbs. I didn't mean to say. There's no
it's like a paleo
bread,
thing you're doing.
No processed carbs.
Okay.
No potato chips, no breads, but you can have potatoes.
Okay.
Potatoes. And last night we did some steaks from Publix and some potatoes. The night before we did salmon and sweet potatoes.
Yeah. Those are all good combos. Yeah.
Well, that was weird. Okay.
just the conversation or something tech on your side.
My mouse moved and everything disappeared on my screen. But we're back. Okay, so that's it for this week. You can find us at layitonthetable.show. You can also find us at Board Game Geek, where we do have a guild, and you can also get versions of this podcast. And of course, you can find us on YouTube at the Geek and Southern YouTube channel. Out there, all that is in the show notes below. Please consider going to wherever you get your podcast and leaving us a review. We'll always accept 5 stars, but we'll also take criticism. And hey, I love it when I'm wrong and somebody points it out. So please do that soon. And as usual, I am Joe Mahaffey, and I am not bored. I am board gaming.
And I'm James Eichelhard, hoping that all your tiebreakers break your way.
We will see you as soon as we can get back together and put another one of these out. I promise we're going to get on a regular schedule. In the meantime, there's some old episodes you can go back there and listen to. There's one with Jamie Stegmaier in there that, gosh, if you're watching the video, you might have even caught a glimpse of a game that ultimately came out and we didn't even know. Bye, everybody.
1, 2, 3,
see y'all.
4.